Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. So today we're going to be reacting to Reddit, reacting to the tier list I made, which is very relevant because it's for January 2024, which is right now. So I figured, hey, Reddit's opening up the discussion. Let's further that discussion and let's go ahead and see what they're talking about. So the title of the Reddit post is, does Hera's tier list reflect that you're ELO? Which I think is really cool because I make these tier lists with the basis of, like, objectively speaking, at the highest level, what are the best civilizations? And I think the highest level sometimes reflects all levels, but I think in a lot of cases there are some clear differences. So I'm curious to see what people have to say and what people's own experiences have been saying. And perhaps I can give some insight as well as to what civilizations are better at lower levels and mid levels and high levels. But this one is really with not really tournaments, but with at least top player 1v1 on Arabia in mind. So let's go ahead and scroll down, see what they have to say. Also, I apologize for a bit of a... actually, no, I don't apologize for anything. I was going to say I apologize for the weird camera angle, but it's actually pretty good. I'm using a new camera right now, and I haven't set it up perfectly, but I hope it's nice for you guys. And the quality should be better. So anyways, this is my tier list. I made this, I think, a week ago or something like that. But anyways, let's take a look and see what these guys have to say. So American Pup is saying it's pretty much the opposite for 1k ELO. Georgians, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Aztecs are in the bottom list for 1k in latest patch according to AoE stats, but A tier here. Okay, all right. Usually I'm not a fan of stat talk, but I think for lower levels it completely makes sense because there's a lot of data. So what is it? Georgians, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Aztecs are bottom list. Okay. I believe the Chinese, 100%. Like, that's not even a question. Chinese start is very difficult. A lot of people collapse when they have to do the Chinese start. And then, like, for 1k, a lot of those guys are beginner players or, you know, just newer players in general. And this is hard. Aztecs, I understand. Mesocivs can be complicated, and Aztecs don't have clearly good archers, like, for example, Mayans and Incas do. And I also think that their strengths are hard to abuse. Like, the Aztec monks that are so good at high level are basically useless around here. So I can definitely see why Aztecs are here. And as far as Georgians, I think it's just because they're new, maybe. Because Georgians should be like a pretty easy and straightforward civ to use. So I'd say give it some time. Like, Manaspas are really strong right now. So I don't know. I think Georgians should eventually climb. And Vietnamese is a confusing one as well. Like, I don't understand why Vietnamese would be bad at lower level. They have a mix of everything. I guess, like, their economy bonus isn't that great. But other than that, I can't see why Vietnamese would be bad. They're an archer civ that has good cav, has decent infantry, and has good cav archers. And good siege. So I'm really not sure what is bad about Vietnamese at 1k. So that's the only surprising one. Other ones make sense. Oh, okay, and this guy's saying Chinese always had the tricky start. That explains the ELO disparity. Chinese are just better at scout opening after their food output stabilizes. Very good comments, agreed. Samstone, I have a hard time with civs that don't have camos. Everyone at night spams. Okay, this is absolutely true. Night spam at lower level is crazy strong. In fact, what I consider to be the most overpowered strategy at lower level is Cumin 2TC Boom that goes unpunished into all-in Castle Age Knights. I think that's just so hard to stop. I've done multiple coaching sessions, and every time we're up against Cumins, the guy I'm coaching just kind of panics. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to, actively punish it. And I try to help him out sometimes, but usually our early pressure doesn't really amount to anything, and we just die to night spam anyways. So yeah, Cumins are really good, and night spam in general super popular at lower level. He said pikes are a pretty easy counter since you can start massing spears in feudal or when going up the castle. He says no, they're not. I actually agree. In my 1100 to 1200 games they have been so far, they're cheaper and faster to mass than knights. If you wall up your base and have extra TCs, knights' mobility doesn't help too much. Meanwhile, I can go forward with the siege workshop and castle and protected by your pikes, forcing him to react or just archer pike combo. Actually, that's kind of true. In lower level games, people with knights often run into pikemen, and they just take bad fights into pikemen 24/7. Sometimes they don't even want to take the fight. They just don't wash their units as much as a pro, as that's understandable. They're not like babysitting their army, and so their knights would just auto attack pikes. They lose 2-3, then they look over, they're like, oh, my knights are there, like, let's pull back. And then the pathing messes up, they lose another 2-3, and then 6 knights just died to pikes in the blink of an eye, and the pikes are countering knights. So I definitely have mixed opinions about this. Like, obviously in higher level, pikes are like really, really bad in early castle against knights. Unless you have some sort of siege push, which is solid, or like archer pike, which is also sometimes solid. It just pikes alone are like super easy to deal with if you're a knight player. But in lower level, I can definitely see how they're definitely quite solid. Okay, let's see what this guy's saying. The correct defense for knights in early castle age is actually monks plus walls, not pikes. I actually agree with that. Since they cannot keep up with knight speed, pikes and halves are more for siege push and for later stage of the game when cavalry is amassed. I 100% agree with that. That is correct. But again, I think this guy has some merits as well. Like, keep in mind, lower level pikes get a lot more value. Okay, Haru is 1850, so 1800, I would say the S tier is very correct. A tier, maybe Saracens and Georgians are down a notch. Other than that, some of the B and C tier civs are slightly stronger at our ELO. Fair enough. Fair enough. I definitely could see why the S tier is very correct. I think the S tier civs are really easy to play, and they have a really straightforward game plan. Like, for example, Mongols. Persians, now that they're buffed, they're super easy game plan. Same with Mayans, and it's no surprise they're strong at 1800 as well. Oh, I'd agree other than Mongols. Feels like builds aren't clean enough to switch to range soon enough, and the couple early scouts are easy enough to counter. Definitely S in the right hands, though. Interesting. Kind of agree. I think Mongols in the wrong hands can fall off, but I think they're so easy to play, especially with laming, that they're definitely S tier even at 1800. Well, I do agree. I feel like people are significantly worse in defending versus Lancers compared to top level, which compensates it. Agreed. Damn, people are saying some good stuff on Reddit, guys. I love that. I'm surprised balance is that low, to be honest. They feel very smooth and flexible at 1500. Actually, that's a decent point. I put balance slightly lower just because I feel like they don't necessarily have that OP feeling as some of the other top civs. So I put them in A tier, or I think top of B. I forget exactly where. Maybe I should scroll up to the top. Let's do that. Where I put balance? Yeah, top of B. Okay, that makes sense. So, you know, I can definitely see Malians being argued to be higher, and I kind of agree with that. But I just feel like they're just not as strong as some of the A-tier civs, nor as well-rounded. I think Malians are really flexible, so in the right hands, they seem like insane, for sure. But I think overall, I wouldn't feel that comfortable with Malians nowadays. Still really good, but yeah, it doesn't just feel as straightforward as some of the top civs. Could easily argue for A-tier, though, no question about it. Even at 2K, I think most people consider Malians better than Tatars in Arabia. They're like less than 40% win rate in big tournaments. If you looked at all of them, it's close to 37% win rate. Hera's personal preference towards Tatar Civ is still shining though, which is fine because it's his tier list. Malians better than Tatars on Arabia. Again, he's looking at win rates in big tournaments, which I disagree with, because like Tatars are usually like the last pick, and usually they get pinned up against like freaking like mines or something. So that's why win rate sucks in tournaments. It's not a good stat. I mean, I could see the argument for Malians being better than Tatars on Arabia. Like, that's completely fine. In fact, maybe if I sat down, I might even agree with that. So, fair enough. But I think I'm not picking Tatars because they're a Hussar civ, actually. So that's, like, not really the case. I'm picking Tatars because they're actually a CA civ that has the flexibility of also going Step Lancer to not die to Mezzo. So it actually has nothing to do with Hussar this time around. Even though I am the Hussar guy, yeah, I'll accept it. But for Tatars, I don't really think of them as a Hussar civ too much. At least that's not why I think they're good. Okay, I've never said Tatars, period. They're way too predictable and the army is rather limited. Like, yeah, their go-to unit is really good at what it does, but if I can see it coming a mile away, it's hard to get good mileage out of it. Not true. CA is a really good tool for Tatars, but they can also do Camel Knight Step Lancer, Light Cap, 4 options from stable, and they can also do crossbow. And there's nothing wrong with their skirms. So I don't think they're that predictable. Likewise, I feel like for all the heat infantry get for not being viable, I'd argue archers are the weakest unit type in Imperial. True, but not true for cav archers. I feel like if it wasn't so awkward to suddenly tech into champs and imp, we'd see them a lot more often. Maybe. For archers, you need to ensure there's rather specific setups to get mileage out of them in imp, aka a forward position to trap the opponent down from, plus rather safe defenses at home to deter counter pushes. Otherwise, both cav and infantry civs will run circles around you. But yeah, I mean, that's how you play archers, though. I mean, that's like saying, if you're going to go cav, you will die if opponent has halbs. Like, yeah, true. That's why, you never fight halbs. You always raid around them. You try to get a counter. Yeah, that's natural, If you're going archers, you're exposed to counterattacks. That's why we make castles at home. That's why we stonewall the entire map through the center. You can't just name, like, okay, cav and infantry civs will run circles around you. No problem. Let them run circles around me. They're going to raid me. I have castles at home. They have 30 pop in my base, which is doing nothing because I have castles. I'm going to push with my 30 pop advantage, break their base from the center. Archer civ wins. You can't just, name one counter and stop there. You got to name to the counter to their counter. If you have 50 Cavalier or 50 Champions, you can safely split them up and sprinkle them around the enemy base while also defending with some of them. If you have 50 Arbs, you will notice the loss in power every single time that group is split or loses someone. Again, archers are made to stick together. The 50 Cav and 50 Champions can raid, but the 50 Cav and 50 Champions cannot win a fight versus 50 Arbs with a bit of meat shield. So they're good at raiding, we're good at pushing. Basically, other unit types can afford to experiment with different mass values, but an archer player can't really and risks being overrun and punished for it. Yeah, I mean, he's just naming the weaknesses of archers, but I feel like at the same time, he's not really naming the strengths of archers. DA is nice in the sense that tankier and move faster, but again, it just never felt like enough for me with Tatars, and it doesn't help that there's several other civs, Mongols, Berbers, Magyars who simply get better mileage out of their late game CA option. I mean, somewhat true, but Tatars get much better power spec in Castle Age, remember that. So there's and early imp. There's a decent sum of matchups that would copy the strat and just one up them. Well, I mean, Mongols are S tier, Berbers are really good in late game, but have problems early that the Tatars don't have, and Magyars have way weaker CA up until like minute 40. So, yeah, this could be just a personal preference that he doesn't understand Tatar, which is understandable. Like, if you don't like them, it's fair enough. But I think I've, gave some pushback on some of his points, and you guys can be the judge of that, whether you guys like Tatars or not. But I disagree with like most of his points, to be honest. Okay, there's some discussions here. I think we might skip through that. That's a lot. But yeah, I respond to the initial post. All right, at 1200 ELO, I have played 6 matches in a row against Mongols. XD. It's a disaster, especially that I don't know how to counter them. Seeing my favorite civs, Teutons, and Sicilians at the bottom is kind of sad. I hope for some infantry-based civs to be somewhat viable. And then he said infantry just sucks historically. Open straight archers, attack with 2 spears, 2 archers, and fletching. Keep massing at home. After their initial scout's power, they will struggle against archers and expos. They fall off mid-game. You got to put pressure on them in Castle Age before they get too strong. Easier said than done, of course. Okay, so talking about Mongols here. Mongols are a hard civ to counter. It's not just you, Demon, Sunbutt. It's everyone. I think Mongols are really, really difficult to counter. Teutons and Sicilians being bottom is natural. Not actually because of infantry just suck. It's just because their eco bonuses and their civs are slow paced. And slow paced has no place in today's meta where everything is super fast. And players, especially at the higher level where I made this tier list, will punish even the smallest of mistakes. At lower levels though, again, these civs can be viable if you like them, but you will run into problems like Teutons into Tatars, Mongols, Berbers. You're going to get destroyed by CA. Sicilians, to an extent, something similar, but you're just going to get outpaced usually because their eco bonus is something for long term and their units are not exactly the strongest. So yeah, it's still playable, but not, that good. Okay, they're having some discussion. Let's go to the next. 1500 Bulgarians main. Can confirm that they're pretty terrible at the moment. No eco bonus, no real strong points in the game, where they can start off with a considerable position ahead of their opponent. You basically have to force through your win cons, and even though you might fall behind because of predictable unit choices. Excellent comment. Perfect comment. Fully agree. 100%. Yeah, I think he summed up the Bulgarians perfectly. I think you have to make your own luck with Bulgarians, which is cool. Like sometimes, like they're fun stuff to play, like meta arm rushing, like playing super aggressive, Krepos forward. But every time you try to get an advantage with Bulgarians, you're putting yourself at risk. So like that's the best way to describe them, right? You're taking risk. If they pay off, you're winning. If your opponent plays solid, you're losing. Okay, there's some discussion here that seems pretty interesting. So you save a considerable amount going meta arm feudal pressure, plus you can set up a tower and still have stone for a TC when you hit castle. Yeah, that's definitely a good point for Bulgarians. You also get smith upgrades super fast and half off on foods. You can invest into foraging, which benefit your calf switch as well. And you can technically swap much quicker in general. Sure, they're kind of predictable, but no more so than Franks going scouts into knights. You can also catch a power spike hitting castle when you get instant swords and upgrade an armor for cheap. If you have a decent infantry mass, you might be able to knock a production building while your forward siege comes in. I don't know. I think they're moderately underused since their pressure is so lethal. I think I kind of agree with most of what he's saying. I think Franks are a lot less predictable though, because remember, they get economy bonus, and Franks going archers will still benefit from free horse scholar. They still benefit from the berry bonus, whereas if Bulgarians don't go meta arm, they don't benefit at all from that bonus until later in the game. So Franks are definitely not the same predictability level as Bulgarians. Also, Scouts has less hard counter. Like meta arm has a hard counter of one range arch, whereas Scouts don't have a hard counter. Unless like full walls. Meta arm isn't really that viable at higher elos anymore. True. At least not on mid-tier open maps such as Arabia. Straight archers just gets that too fast. True. Meta arm can work if you catch them off guard when they're playing too greedy, but that won't happen if you're Bulgarians. That's actually a great comment. Agreed 100%. He summed that up perfectly. Surprised that Chinese, even with the tech cost reduction nerf, has fallen to A tier. Wait, fallen to A tier? I guess he expected it to fall lower. They just got a small buff to their town centers, getting basically an extra 5 pop per town center, which helps the early game and the mid game. So that's what kind of balanced out the other nerf. 1k to 1k2 on open maps, and I'd say that we don't see half these civs anyway. Mongol, Khmer, Mines, S tier easy, Nexus, Franks, Poles. Wow, interesting. Berbers, Lithuanians, Hindustani. The rest are a grab bag and usually played pretty poorly. I don't see a ton of archer civs in 1v1 typically. Yeah, that is because at lower level, cav civs outperform archer civs like crazy. It is only until like mid-higher elo where archer civs start to make a comeback. In lower elo, cav civs are dominating. It's like cav or infantry actually. Like the counter to cav is not archer civ, it's actually infantry civ. at lower level. It's like, oh, my opponent's going Franks, I'm gonna go Japanese. He has no chance versus my Japanese Halbs, and he probably doesn't. He's probably gonna die to them. So yeah, it's kind of what I see from coaching. All right, 1k3 Berbers, Cumans, Franks, Romans are S tier. Mayans and Tatars are not as good. No one ever plays melee. I think they are nasty, but they can be a difficult one if you're not used to it. Yeah, Cumans are strong. Berbers are insane. Franks are good. Yeah, this is actually super solid. These are like the 4 low elo stomp civs. Roman men at armor like basically unstoppable at lower level. Cumans, 2TC is insane. Berber night spam, Frank night spam. Again, easy game plans. This is why these civs are so strong. Easy game plans. Taters, boil and mash him, stick him in a stew. Filthy hobbitses, love the Lord of the Ring references. I love the Berber night spam. 50% of the time it works all the time. Yep. For Chinese, I need an E tier insta loss. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Najilo. That is what I'm saying. Chinese is so hard for lower level players. I see this all the time in coaching. People just panic when they get Chinese, and I feel bad. But I understand it. It's difficult. I actually have an old guide for how to play Chinese start. But it's a really old guide. You can find it on YouTube if you're interested. I play what I like at the moment. No civ is better than another to me. That is actually what I recommend at lower levels. I always say if you're a beginner, play what you like. If you have fun with it, you're gonna do well with it. Simple as that. Like the tier list barely matters at like beginner level. That is. As a Bulgarian Sicilian man, I feel vindicated in my excuses. Love that. I feel like the difference between A tier and B tier is extremely small. True. That is why Malians being top of B tier is like the same as them being A tier. So that's actually a good sign of balance. So I think without like the extremities, the balance is actually pretty good right now. After the last couple patches where they fixed a lot of the power creep. Power creep was crazy like 2 patches ago, I think. 1400 Ethiopians stick out as way too low. Cumans, Spanish, and Japanese could likely be higher. Yeah, especially Cumans. I also feel Teutons are underrated with their farm bonus. Georgians and Armenians seem overrated. I know China's good at high elo, but I don't think I've ever lost to them. Aztecs overrated. Personal preference, but I hate playing as Portuguese. Fair enough. Yeah, makes sense to a lot of what we've been saying. I feel the same way about Ethiopians. 18% fire rate and having camels seems too deadly for a viable civ. But also true that playing one step ahead and going for skirms and feudal can get you a big edge. I kind of agree with him that Ethiopians are super deadly. But the points I made in the tier list video was like, if you don't pull ahead in those like tight moments where you have like the lead, then you fall behind. So it's like a high risk, high reward civ almost at higher level. And he said, don't Ethiopian camels suck though? Not really. You have bad camels late game, but even without bloodlines, you can make a few camels and support your strong archers in early game versus knights. I think the free pike upgrade is huge as well. Their game plan is just so easy to follow with archer plus spear into expo plus spike, and then their uniqueness is excellent at sniping siege skirms. 100%. I mean, Ethiopians are a good civ, right? I put them in viable tier. That's pretty decent. All right, I think I'm gonna call. Oh, this comment looks good too. Okay, we're not calling it yet. Looks pretty accurate that my elo 1700 to 1800. I think Byzantines and possibly Hindustani could be A instead of B, but they play a different game at 2.5. Fair enough. I feel like Byzantines are an S tier civ everybody sleeps on. Oh, okay, that's a bold comment. Byzantines have consistently proven their capacity to tangle with any civ in the game. That alone to me makes them S tier, not meso civs. Even if they don't feel as smooth, they're powerful to play. Any civ that secures strong odds of beating your opponent regardless of what your opponent picks is absolutely worth the praise. Kind of agree, but not 100% true. Byzantine have a lot of weird matchups. For example, all 3 meso civ just stick out like a sore thumb. Byzantine have a really hard time dealing with those guys. And some other civilizations, like for example Goths, can do really well against Byzantine until Byzantine gets cataphract. And the same can be said for a lot of matchups for Byzantine. They can win if they get cataphract, but getting cataphract is so difficult that Byzantine can seem very awkward and can have a lot of weird matchups. Also stuff like Khmer can just straight up outpace Byzantine, for example. All right, we're going to call it here, guys. This has been really interesting. Shout out to the Reddit community of AoE2. Love to see what they have to say. I'm a regular around there. I always read the comments. Sometimes I'll comment myself with my little hands. And yeah, check them out if you haven't already. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you guys enjoyed this. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, either from Reddit or Twitter, definitely let me know. I love these discussion videos. Thanks for watching, and peace.